Hello, Africa. Welcome to a special edition of the morning show on Diaspora Digital Media on this day, Monday, 1st December 2025. I remain your humble host and moderator, Tochukwu Raphael, joined by my colleague, Ibrahim Umawase. Good to see you, Mr. Ibrahim.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Tochukwu Raphael.
All right, this episode is promising to be highly argumentative. We shall be stripping bare an intensely controversial topic, IPOB and the Igbo liberation struggle, decoding Nnamdi Kanu's post-conviction power plays. We know that Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, is serving a life sentence in Sokoto prison after his November 20th, 2025 conviction by Justice James Omotoshi on 7 terrorism charges for inciting violence via broadcasts and sit-at-home orders in the southeast Nigeria. This follows a decade-long battle from his 2021 rendition, failed appeals to the recent Court of Appeal dismissal of his rights violation suit as moot post-conviction. Now, as Kanu plots from behind bars, is IPOB a genuine vehicle for Igbo self-determination amid marginalization claims, or a terrorist front fueling chaos? But then, is there a valid and sound justification for the breakaway of the Southeast from Nigeria? And how effective has been the method so far used by IPOB to propagate this agitation? Now let's hear from opposing voices. First, Emeka Ugwuonye Esquire is a renowned legal consultant and CEO of Due Process Advocates International, a vocal critic of Kanu and IPOB's activities in the Southeast. Thank you for joining, Mr. Ugwuonye.
Thank you very much.
All right, opposing him is Chika Austine, IPOB media personnel defending the group's push for Biafran rights against government crackdowns. Welcome, Mr. Austine.
Thanks so much, the moderator. Thanks much. Let me just make small clarifications. Are you with me?
Of course, I'm all here.
Yeah, I'm not here on official capacity to IPOB. I'm here on personal representation, and my opinion is absolutely personal view. Very, very important.
All right, noted. Let me give the floor to Mr. Ibrahim to read out the rules and regulations. Very important. Mr. Ibrahim.
All right, Mr. Tochukwu Raphael, thank you for having me once again. For the sake of fair and smooth moderation, we have 7 rules and regulations guiding to this discussion. Number 1, every guest has a maximum of 3 minutes to respond to a question posed by the host. And when responding to another guest's points, the speaker has just 1 minute. Number 2, no ethnic, religious, regional, or political sentiment must overshadow truth. Intellectual honesty is the supreme rule today. Number 3, no interruption until the speaker complete their central idea. Once they land, rebuttals are open. Number 4, sweeping statements require strong data, logic, or life experience. If it cannot be defended, refine it or retract it. Number 5, no dodging, no pivoting, no answering a different question. Stick to the issue until it is fully explored. Number 6, we debate position, and this is very, very important, not personalities. No insults, no character assassination. Number 7, which is the last, no opinion is above interrogation. Every claim must face rigorous counter-arguments. Passion is allowed, but facts must lead. Every statistics, quotes, or claim must be traceable or logically grounded, because our team will fact-check in the process of editing the video to ensure that everything that is being said is grounded in facts. Thank you very much, Mr. Tochukwu Raphael. These are the 7 rules guiding to this show.
All right, I appreciate you, Mr. Ibrahim. Let's hit the nail on the head. Let me start with you, Mr. Chika Austine. But first of all, let me reiterate what Ibrahim said. Whatever ideas you are presenting, kindly do so without prejudice or undue sentiments. This interview involves two issues. First is the justification for secession or self-determination for the Igbos in Nigeria. And second is the best and effective way to go about it, which then will involve the existence and assessment of IPOB and its activities in the Southeast region. So I start with you, Mr. Austine. You are an IPOB apologist, and we know that the current situation of IPOB and its leader was engendered by an imagined or real injustice against the Igbos and the subsequent agitation for a Biafra state. Now I ask you, when you examine the life of the Igbos in Nigeria from 1970 to date, will you argue that there are more or less grounds for that agitation for secession?
Well, thanks once more for that question. And of course, you pen it down from 1970, which is giving it a dating face value. First of all, let me correct the use of the word secession, which I think is not compatible with what IPOB is fighting for. I think this issue of semantics, IPOB is asking for self-determination, which is a universal right of a people. And we should also understand that before the issue of self-determination comes up, there are strong factors that propel such move. And if you look at the date you have just posited from 1970 till now, and the case or the fate of an Igbo man, as the case may be, and it's also important, furthermore, I clarify this issue of a geographical shortening of what the Biafran project is all about. Because each time people talk about Biafra, people, should I say, dishonestly try to leverage it or limit it to the Southeast, so to say, without understanding the scope, the geographical coverage of the Biafran area or the Biafran land. So from 1970 till now, the issue of, when we use the word marginalization, is a common media tantrum everybody, try to use. But I would rather want to use the issue of exclusion against the Biafran people is something that you cannot overemphasize on it. It is obvious. Let me give instance because it's important we talk about facts and figures. From 1970, which is the period the war ended, the Biafran-Nigerian war ended, there was a political theory formulated, which I believe that theory was imported from US version of what post-civil war was supposed to be. That is the theory of reconstruction, rehabilitation, and reconciliation. The popular 3 R's. At the post-civil war era, that policy was expected to be implemented as a healing balm to the war of 1967 to 1970. And you and I should ask ourselves a simple question. Has Nigerian state truly reconciled the Igbo man? Has Nigerian state objectively taken out a strong integrational policy on the side of the Biafran people? The answer is no. The past election is not far-fetched. The story that surrounds the past election, where we know even those of them who are official member of the government openly, the information is on public domain. They openly campaign ethnic disfranchisation of a people.
Yeah, you have exhausted your 3 minutes.
Okay.
I think if you can round up in some seconds.
Okay, let me round up. It's just the question has a historical fact.
What I've got in what you have made your point. Your point is that the 3 R's, the 3 R's, your point is that the 3 R's set aside or set out to be achieved by Gowon's administration or Gowon's regime, rehabilitation, reconciliation, and the rest of them, has not been achieved, or the purpose for which it was established has not been achieved. That's your point. Now, let me put the same question to Mr. Ugwuonye. Do you think at the end of the war in 1970, Gowon's regime made a bold statement of no victor, no vanquished? And that is correct. And set out a procedure for rehabilitation processes in the Southeast. Now, do you think that purpose has been achieved? If yes, tell us how. If no, tell us how. Because that is the justification Mr. Austine has, is bringing up for the secession, the agitation for secession. So, in your own perspective and estimation, do you think that's true?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to have a civil debate on this. This is actually much better than the angry exchanges that occur on social media. So this wonderful opportunity. To answer your question in a very straight manner, Gowon's government, like most military governments that came after the Civil War, they failed. There's no doubt that they failed on this policy, but also failed on every other policy. But that failure is not based on ethnic issues. It's a matter of competency and poor governance. In 1970, when the war ended, we had a military government. The military government remained in office. 1975, Gowon was kicked out. Butala Mohammed came in, was killed in a coup. Obasanjo came. It wasn't until 1979 that Nigeria returned to civil rule. And when Nigeria returned to civil rule, we had the president Shagari, who was the vice president, an Igbo man. An Igbo man, that's not exclusion, that is inclusion. In 1983, Shagari won his second term, again with an Igbo vice president. Assuming Shagari had remained in office and finished his term in 1987, most likely we would have had an Igbo presidency in Nigeria in 1987. That is 38 years ago. So the notion of exclusion is being confused with the notion of failure. There was governance failure, and it wasn't necessarily based on ethnicity. It was comprehensive failure. Now, going further to talk about exclusion, if you look at every measure indices of inclusion or exclusion, you will find out that the notion of Igbo exclusion has been unduly exaggerated because people conflate, they mix up issue of poor performance of governance with the issue of ethnic exclusion. For instance, look at level of educational development. The North did not develop better than the Southeast. Look at every government, even during military rule, Igbos were always part of the cabinet. Then coming to the issue of election, which he mentioned now, yes, people believe that Obi was rigged out. But that wasn't because Obi was an Igbo man. It was more because Obi was a member of Labour Party. And I can tell you, based on personal knowledge, that in 2007, Obasanjo rigged the election in favor of Yaradua. How did I know? Because I'm supposed to assert the truth. I was representing Nigerian government. On January 12th, 2008, I flew into London to meet the Attorney General Andoka as the lawyer for Nigerian government, and he was the Attorney General. We spoke. Andoka told me in my presence, and actually in the presence of a witness, because I came in to see Andoka with a witness. And Doka told me that he was concerned about losing the case, the electoral tribunal. I asked him why he was so scared. He said, Yaradua didn't win. Buhari won. This was the Attorney General of Yaradua confessing to me that they didn't win the election, that they rigged it. So now I will ask you, when Obasanjo rigged Buhari out, was Buhari an Igbo man? So Obi would not be the first politician to be rigged out. This game has been on in Nigeria. It is more of electoral malpractices, rigging, which is not based on ethnicity. If Obi had been part of the incumbent party, they wouldn't have rigged him out. That is it. So looking at any measure in this year, in the indices on development, or to answer the question of exclusion, it is exaggerated. There have been poor governance. The military failed everybody. They failed the Yorubas. They failed the House. They failed themselves. If the military had indeed backed upon improving one ethnic. Okay, very well. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, sir. Yeah. You have exhausted your time, sir, and I would like to bring you back. You make the premise of your argument that Nigerians across the board share the same circumstance of marginalization and exploitation, maybe from the political elite, regardless of the tribe they spoke or the belief in their head. And Mr. Austine, Chika Austine, mentioned that it is not all about cessation, but self-determination. And self-determination is something that is accepted both in the Constitution of the Federal Republic and in international law. But I would like to take you back a bit, Mr. Emeka, Barrister Emeka, I'm sorry. Before we talk method, we must ask whether the journey itself is justified. Should the Igbos leave Nigeria based on the idea of self-determination? Let me start with you, Mr. Emeka.
First and foremost, the issue of self-determination has been so confused by members of IPOB. Self-determination is not allowed by Nigerian constitution, first and foremost. And self-determination does not constitute splitting up a country, because there is also an equally valid principle in international law called territorial integrity. Every country wants to make sure it maintains its borders. Borders cannot be shifted from time to time because somebody woke up and wanted to redraw the map. So whatever he calls it, insofar as he's altering the boundaries of Nigeria, he is going to attract opposition. And I want to say it's not only Nigeria, in United States, you don't have rights to secession or to break away, whatever you call it. In Canada, these are decisions decided by U.S. Supreme Court and Supreme Court of Canada. They said there may be, in Canada, he said there may be exceptional circumstances where a group have been so marginalized such that there is no prospect of correcting it within the existing system. And I can tell you that we had such a situation in 1967. There was a comprehensive breakdown of law and order, head of state killed, people being murdered in various parts of the country. It was impossible in 1967 to address Nigerian crisis within the premise of the constitutional framework. Then there was no constitutional framework. So Ojukwu was justified in seeking secession at that moment. Today, we don't have that. So when you hear about self-determination, it is more about good governance if you're operating within the confines of a sovereign state. You don't have this theory of self-determination. For instance, he says it's not secession. But if you look at the facts on the ground, what they're asking for secession. Inevitably, how would you pursue the notion of Biafra if you don't break from Nigeria? Otherwise, you are thinking that Nigeria will become two countries in one. It's not possible. To ask for the sovereignty, actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra is secession. It doesn't matter what you call it. You can't just change the term in order to look good. You are asking for unconstitutional balkanization of Nigeria without parliament, without the legal process. It is illegal. It is treason. It doesn't matter what you call it. Okay? So now, the question, I think your question has another angle to it. So that justification is absolutely bogus. Our constitution is clear. If you look at the Treasonable Felonies Act, doing anything to overwhelm the state, to fractionate the country, to alter its territory in this is not just illegal, it is a serious crime.
Thank you very much, Barrister Emeka. Mr. Chika, let's bring in your perspective. You heard what Mr. Barrister Emeka said. He talked about, should I say, the limitation of self-determination? Because if I'm cutting it right, according to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the preamble stated that Nigeria is an indivisible, indissoluble entity, which puts a barricade on self-determination from within. Maybe if Nigeria is attacking another territory outside Nigeria, that's when that idea of self-determination will play out. So my question here is, IPOB insists that separation is not only about separation, I mean, or self-determination, the time you like to call it, is not only necessary but overdue. Why is that the movement stand? And second, how are you going to reconcile what he said, that self-determination is not accepted within the confinement of the Nigerian Constitution?
Well, let me respond quickly on that, on what he said in regards to Nigerian law, because to the best of my knowledge, Nigerian Constitution domesticated a lot of laws that respect the life, the right of the people for self-determination. Looking at African Charter, looking at UN Charter, and these laws are domesticated in Nigerian Constitution. So I didn't know where he's getting his own area of argument. Also, never forget that part of a country or state actor behavior or philosophy or ideology are being embedded in what that state actor foreign policy is all about. Am I correct? And Nigerian foreign policy towards Palestinians recognized the right for self-determination. Nigeria has not just only made an oratory support or oral support, so to say. Nigeria has also made a political and diplomatic support in supporting the right of the Palestinian people for self-determination. If you look at Western Sahara Arabs and what Nigerian foreign policy is towards their self-determination project, you will agree with me that Nigeria has also supported the quest for self-determination, not only domesticating it in her local law, but even in foreign behavior. Now, the question one should ask him or herself objectively is this: why does Nigeria contradict herself when it comes to supporting the same thing she's supporting overseas at home? The answer is not far-fetched. Because we have people who believe that they can live a double life without being called into accountability. So if Emeka is arguing on the contrary, that there is no section of Nigerian law, even when African Charter on Self-Determination is domesticated in Nigerian local law, Nigerian foreign policy supports even the right of people for self-determination as inherent in Palestinian affair, as inherent in Western Sahara Arabs, Nigerian foreign policy towards that part of the world. So no one can now come up and say, Nigeria does not support self-determination. Nigeria does not, there is no way anybody can activate the process of self-determination. That is the great contradiction. And that is why, let me round up with this. That is why people can locally make noise and say, you cannot talk about self-determination. If you talk about it, we proscribe you as a terrorist. But when it comes to global stage, do they boldly repeat the same local mantra at global stage? For instance, there was recent U.S. Congress hearing as regards to the Christian genocide, and the issue of Nnamdi Kanu came up. Nigerian delegates in U.S. Congress, on the hearing, they could not even fault the U.S. congressman. Don't raise the name of this man. Don't talk about these people. After all, they are terrorists. What they are planning is secession. Nobody faulted that. So at home, they seem to be wide. But when it comes to Committee of Nations, where logic, rational thinking prevails over local noises and tantrums, you see them coordinating themselves. So Emeka saying that there is nothing like that in Nigerian law, I think that is a height of dishonest. Secondly, if he cannot see what is obvious at local law, he should as well beam his satellite at the level of Nigerian foreign policy. So let him tell me what Nigeria is supporting in Palestine. What is it called? What Nigerian foreign policy is towards Western Sahara Arab? What is it called? I want to get
all right. Before I yield the mic to Barrister Emeka, I believe, I'm not here to speak for him, by the way, he can speak for himself. I believe he's talking about secession from within the country. I believe United States of America fought a civil war, and currently in Spain, a country in the Western world, they are having the same issue, Catalonia and Spain. So, and I don't think these countries are willing to give in part of their territory, and I believe that's what.
Sorry, we make a whole lot of misrepresentation and misinterpretation of. If you look at the Catalonian thing, Catalonians ask for external sovereignty, but the Spanish authority have given them internal sovereignty. Do you understand me? But they are insisting they need external sovereignty. If you also look at America, which he referenced, America is just like countries within a country. You can call it confederation, you can call it true federalism, depends the theory or possibility.
All right. Thank you very much.
But the truth remains that
I would like him to respond to your question. I would like him to respond to your question that you raised, that there is hypocrisy from the Nigerian government, Nigeria as a state, regarding the external policy and the policy they play in Nigeria. Is there any hypocrisy, Barrister Emeka?
Chika's position is a gross misrepresentation of international law. It is a gross misrepresentation of my position. It is a gross misrepresentation of history. It is a gross misrepresentation of reality. I'm speaking from the United States at the moment. So this notion that there is something happening in America I'm not aware of is actually incorrect. First and foremost, Palestinian is not Nigeria. Palestinian was never part of Israel. Palestinian is not seeking to secede from Israel. Palestinian had not at any point been a constituent part of the Israeli state. So that notion is grossly mistaken. Now, looking at the Constitution, the opening chapter of our Constitution says this is an indivisible entity. It was very clear, leaving no room for secession. And then when he talked about domestication of foreign law, which foreign law? I just gave you the United States. I gave you Canada. Give me any other country where anybody can just walk away and call it self-determination. In the general concept of self-determination in international law, as is understood, it could mean different things. Two things. One major thing is when there is no sovereign state involved, there's occupation. Like Palestine. In Palestinian case, we're talking of occupation of the country by another country. The world wanted this, what they call the two-state solution. Palestine had to be its own state. It has been decided by a series of United Nations resolution, which becomes a binding legal entity. We don't have anything comparable to Nigerian scenario. So the examples he gave are incorrect. But wait a minute, because he said something else. He talked about Nigeria not being consistent with its international obligations. No, that is not true. He has not cited any example comparable to Nigeria. Now, we believe that people that are oppressed have rights to demand for better governance. And we talk in the context of internal self-determination, rights to be autonomous to a degree. But if you come to that, you are speaking about constitutional reformulation, constitutional modification. And our constitution in Nigeria provides for how it could be amended. So there is within Nigerian constitutional framework opportunity for amendment, restructuring, improvement. But balkanization of the country, altering its territories, is totally outside our constitution and certainly not encouraged by international law. So I don't know what example
thank you very much, Mr. Barrister Emeka.
I would like to ask a question to Mr. Austine. You know, Nigeria is a complex country, and no country would like to easily share part of it to, you know, a region. But, you know, it is almost difficult today. That's why Ibrahim said that the United States fought a brutal civil war in the 19th century, you know, when the North wanted to secede. But then in Nigeria, Nigeria is a complex country. In your opening statement, I was expecting you to pinpoint practical, concrete evidence of marginalization or a deliberate, targeted attempt to meet injustice to a particular set of people in Nigeria, that is the Igbos. Because we should be talking with facts, not just making general statements. I would like you to pinpoint now what exactly is it that is unjust that the federal government has been, since 1970s to date, consistently making to the Igbos.
Okay,
because we are still talking about the justification for secession. Yeah.
Okay, let me go quick. Maybe I wanted to point them out, but because of your question have a historical phase, that's why I went back to history. Well, I will point to you and also remind you that the national treasure or national resources, as the case may be, is meant to be of beneficial to every component of the entity, if I'm correct. Let me give you a recent event, as in the case of 2025 budget, where irrigation project of 38 billion, it was a project of 38 billion, I'm telling you, 2025 project, and the entire Southeast was excluded. I will also point to you to AKK gas pipeline project. As a matter of fact, that pipeline project is meant to move from Imo State. And you can believe me that every southeastern state was avoided. Rather, it transited through Ajokuta, Kaduna, Kanu. I'm talking about AKK gas project. The main area of sourcing that raw material was boycotted. And I think you know about the NEL fund of 2024. You also understood what happened in the House over the exclusion. They say it was as a result of. Sorry?
But I can hear you.
Okay, good. You can, and the issue of the one of NEL fund, when the issue came up why the exclusion to Southeast, they say it was administrative error. Now, let me now come and just give you the ones you can easily have official hand on. Now, let's talk about the issue of opening the seaports in the East. These arguments have been long. Even of recent is a verifiable stuff. There was an issue of Lagos port being overcrowded and let some waterways in the East be open. And you could understand the position of Lagos State. We are talking about international airports. Some people will say, oh, but Enugu airport is international. How many international flights coming? And if you look at statistical figure of the people who have the high rate of mobility, it is not an over-exaggeration to say it is the people of the East. But yet they are denied access to international airspace. So there are a lot of them that if I start pointing them, perhaps somebody like Emeka will say it is administrative error, just the way federal government claimed in one of the issue. So the issue of exclusion from 19 1970 to date is something you can pick. It is at official level and is also at unofficial level. So anybody who tries
Thank you, Mr. Chika. Thank you. You have exhausted your time.
is all right.
Mr. Tochukwu.
Yes.
Even though I did not hear most of what you said because your line has been breaking. What I thought is
Do I need
mention people on that? But it's all right. It's okay. Mr. Ugwuonye, because we have got little time.
Yeah. Okay, now, okay, if you let me in, because the gentleman said a lot of many things that need to be rebutted and corrected, actually. First and foremost, there is bad governance. Bad governance does not justify self-determination in his definition of self-determination, because when he says they were not looking for a secession, he was denying a very important part. The fact is that they were looking for a sovereign state of Biafra. What does the sovereign state of Biafra mean? What does that sovereign state of Biafra mean? So we gathered in here to have a discussion, and you are denying your premise. Your premise is that you want Biafra. If you admit now that no, what you want is good governance, you don't want separate state of Biafra, then that's the end of this discussion. I will stop disagreeing with you. You want Biafra, and your reason for wanting Biafra is because the eastern states were excluded. Okay, let me tell you something. In the United States at the moment, it is being said that President Donald Trump is denying some states in the United States the benefit because they didn't vote for him. Would those states be justified now to seek secession from the United States because they are not getting what they consider due to them? No. Now, you talked about budgetary issues and you made the mistake of admitting that the House is debating it. If the House is debating it...
No. Perhaps you got, sorry, let me.
I gotta finish. Finish.
Mr. Chika,
sorry,
there is no interruption. That's part of our rules. Yeah.
It's all right.
He talked about NEFund and said it was being discussed in the National Assembly. That is legitimate. National Assembly, you have representatives in the National Assembly. Channel your arguments through your representative. They are dealing with that. And then look at the other argument about seaport. If seaport is your concern, you can't talk of Biafra, because if they give you Biafra, you have absolutely no access to the sea. If the South don't agree with your Biafra, if they don't want to be part of you in Biafra, how can you talk about seaport in Biafra? And if you get Biafra without the South, you will have to fly through Nigeria, because Nigeria will surround you 365 degrees. So what's international airspace? You have to fly over Nigerian airspace at any point in time, and if you pass through their airspace, their air force can intercept your flight, bring it down to search it for anything, weapons. So these people who advocate for Biafra are completely, I don't want to sound rude, but they're so ignorant. What they're asking for, the Biafra they are looking for today, is different from the Biafra that Ojukwu contemplated. You know, Ojukwu's Biafra in 1967, his Biafra would have had 3 countries neighboring it. So the West would have been the Odua state, who Awolowo agreed, because Awolowo said to Ojukwu when he was released in Enugu that if the East secedes, the West will secede. So Ojukwu had in mind that Yorubas, the West, will become a separate country. That will be, our border to the West will be one country, our border to the East will be Cameroon, and our border to the North will be the Northern Nigeria. And then to the South, we will have direct access to the sea. Then we can talk of seaport. Right now, what these people want as Biafra, even if it is allowed, will be the Southeast, surrounded completely, like Lesotho in South Africa. So they don't know what they're talking about. The solution is not separation.
Thank you.
Nigeria's got a lot of problems.
Thank you very much, Barrister Emeka.
That problem.
Can I respond to Barrister Emeka's assertion?
Yeah, you can respond. Yeah, you can respond.
Well, yes, you can. I would like you to respond to it, because you mentioned a very important point.
Yeah, I want to respond to that. Well, it's quite unfortunate that Barrister Emeka decided to draw the Biafra of his mental picture. The Biafra we are talking about is not different from the Biafra of 1967. It's absolutely no different. The geographical location still remains the same Biafra. So if he comes up and say, "Oh, why are you talking? You're the Biafra you're talking ends within the southeast. I think maybe he just decided to draw a map of his choice. And besides, take note of this. Even if the theory he's postulating as regards to waterways in southeast, I don't think southeast by his own, let me go by his own postulation, which is quite different from.
Can you hear me?
Please, Mr. Austine.
Okay.
Yeah. Continue. Just round it up because we are entering the second segment of the argument.
Yeah, let me round up.
Yeah.
I think only God knows where he imported the geographical map of the Biafra he's talking about. The Biafra we are talking about is not different from that of 1967. It's absolutely not different, geographically wise. Even if he now decide to narrow it based on his own understanding and his own concept to the southeastern states, does he understand that Onitsha have access to the waterways? Does he also understand? Because I understand his theory that even though you're going to go through Onitsha, you are definitely going to access the Nigerian borders. When you have several countries with such waterways, those waterways are mapped out as international waterways. For instance, there are certain waters that crosses certain areas, like if you look at the Suez Canal. Suez Canal, geographically speaking, belongs to Egypt, but it's an international waterway. Israel makes use of it. If you look at Panama Canal, belongs to Panama when you look at geographical location, but it's an international waterway. So I wonder where he's coming up with his own theory. So, and on the issue of self-determination.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Gentlemen, permit me a second, because he brought something that was not initially on the table.
Listen.
Can I round up?
I'm sorry, you can't be talking over each other. The audience are not going to hear any of you. So, Mr. Chika, round up your point in 1 minute.
So on the issue of him talking about the self-determination project of IPOB shrinks the boundary of Biafra, I think it is not factual. Because IPOB has never postulated a different geographical reality other than what was obtainable in 1967. So if he decides to imagine and present whatever he wants to present, it's sacrosanct to him. That is what I want to say.
Okay. All right, Barrister Emeka, you can come in 1 minute, please. Just address what he said.
Gentlemen, the south region of Nigeria, Bayelsa, Rivers, Cross River, and Akwa Ibom have stated they do not want to be part of Biafra. They are not seceding today. So
is he your friends from South? Is he your friends from South?
Don't interrupt me. Can you stop
me? Is it opinions of your friends? No, I want.
Mr. Chika, I will ask him this. I will ask him the question. But don't interrupt.
It's all right. Sorry for that.
The South is not part. They are scared of Igbo domination. They don't want to be part of it. As Asari Dokubo has been speaking, he's the voice in the South. And if you look at when the governor Wike was there in office, it was very clear his response to the IPOB, which is why you don't have a seat at home in any of the South states. Even Delta State, that is adjoining our nation, never had a seat at home. Okay, so they work in Asaba on Mondays and sit at home in Onitsha. It is absolutely clear that what they contemplate as Biafra now is strictly the Igbo-speaking area of Nigeria. So it is impossible. No access to the street. And don't interrupt. Don't interrupt.
Barrister Emeka.
Interrupt. He interrupted me.
I need to finish. Let me ask you a question. He raised. Okay. Finish.
So, the international waterway he talked about constituting Onitsha through River Niger, and it's not analogous to what is happening in Suez Canal or the Bosphorus or Panama. These were special arrangements. We don't have anything such as that. Of course, if we secede, assuming they allow Biafra to emerge and Nigerian government agrees, then we may have that idea. But the notion that they could impose it on Nigeria is inappropriate and impossible. It's not logical at all. He has no factual examples to give. He's just putting up these ideas, and that is the problem we have.
Sorry, Mr. Barrister Emeka, you talk about facts, and clearly part of our rules and regulations is that we should stick on facts, not emotion. So he raised a very serious question. He asks you whether, from which source are you inferring that, for example, the states you mentioned that are not in support of Biafra, what is the fact there? Is it based on hearsay or insinuation, or you just suggest that these people don't want to be part of Biafra?
No, actually, the question is, on what basis did they determine that a particular part of the country is willing to go with them? This notion, they have the burden of proving that they have the support of the current occupants of the territories of the old Eastern region. They're supposed to exert support, and I have given you very clear fact that people in River State are not allowing this sit at home. They are not in any way yielding to it. I gave you that example. It's a fact. People in IPOB State don't allow that. People in Cross River State don't allow that. There's no sit at home in Delta or in Benin, Edo, or in Bayelsa. These are facts that we know. The sit at home are affected by the 5 states in the southeast. It's a fact. So when you say on what source declared their Biafra? Have they ever articulated a clear map for Biafra? No. They have never, in all that IPOB have been doing, there had never been a clear map projected. There had never been a clear constitutional proposition. All they're doing is causing mayhem on social media, calling their Biafran thing. But we're looking at facts on the ground. And the facts on the ground is that the people of South are not part of it.
That is speculation. That is speculation. And for your information, you can only authentify who is supporting Biafra and who is not supporting on regional basis based on plebiscite or referendum. So if you are just calling, I'm coming. Let me land up. Let me land. If you are quoting Asari and yes, they are individual opinions. So go to referendum and test the popularity of the concept.
I said, even if we agree that separation is necessary, the question remains how. What is the safest, smartest, and most lawful way forward? I think that is the question that lingers in everyone's heart. So, Barrister Emeka, many have criticized IPOB tactics. Some call them courageous. Others say it is counterproductive. Legally and strategically, how do you access their method?
Very, very good question that we got to this point. Assuming we decide, assuming they say, all right, separation is necessary, even though I contend it's not, because one point we missed in all these things was the effect of separation on Igbos living outside the Igbo land. Igbos in Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, and all those people who will all be devastatingly affected. But let's put it aside and say, all right, somehow we agree that separation is possible. The gentleman actually mentioned something. He said, let's have a plebiscite. Okay, that suggests that there is a constitutional process, a non-violent and lawful process that could be embarked upon. So by saying that, he implies that we can work within the existing legal framework. And when it comes to existing framework, that means that all these Igbo states or communities affected by the Biafra or communities that are so marginalized according to him, all these communities have current political representatives at various levels of government, local government, councillors, state house of assembly, the governors, house of representatives, the Senate. All these institutions are represented by every state. So we would then think that if there was going to be any alteration of Nigerian constitution, or any establishment of a plebiscite or referendum process, it will go through established institutions. I will support that. Every country has the capacity to modify its own constitution. Now, the question we have is, the emergence of IPOB is an absolute reversal of this basic process. IPOB has no legitimacy. IPOB was somebody came up and volunteered himself as the righteous savior of the Igbos or the Biafrans, and emerged. Because when you see, the whole thing is, when they talk of exclusion, when you ask them who was excluded, he said he was excluded. Then who is Biafra? Then they bring Ijo. They talk about resource control, and if it comes to the resource control, it's not the Igbos that resources are being exploited. It is the South. But in any event, the only way to amend the constitution, to avoid bloodshed, to avoid the violence, is to go through legitimate process. For somebody to emerge on his own, declare himself the savior, is antithetical to every civilized process. Because you know what happens? If it's possible for Nnamdi Kanu to declare himself a savior, anyone else can declare himself a savior. We could end up having 100 saviors in Igbo land, and nobody's accountable, nobody's controllable, no legal framework. These guys are self-serving, self-creating, self-promoting, self-justified bigots. Now, let me tell you something. Owazirike did that. He caused his own mayhem. A lot of people died. Because people had to die because there's conflict. Conflict between the imagined self-imposed force and the legitimate force of the state. It must occur.
All right.
Someone else emerged and someone else is coming.
Barrister Emeka, you have exhausted your time. I believe this conversation can not be complete without discussing Nnamdi Kanu's trial. So, Mr. Chika, do you believe that the trial was fair, or do you see it as part of wider struggle?
I'm sorry, let me respond to the question you asked him. That would have given, I think, a balanced program. You see, he did mention, he emphatically stated that somebody emerged from somewhere and started asking for Biafra. On that note, that is not a legitimate fellow, or the movement he's leading is not legitimate. And if I should ask, where does legitimacy emanate? Does legitimacy emanate from the people or from individuals who assume themselves to be anything? What authentifies legitimacy is the level of support you have. For instance, I believe him, Mr. Emeka, must have championed one or two causes that he struggled to get people's legitimacy, owing to the fact maybe his own postulation is not acceptable by the people. So if he's coming to tell me that legitimacy is based on when two persons say, we have recognized what you're doing, or three persons, to me is not democratic process. It is the people that legitimatize a theory, ideology, or whatever you call it. And in the case of Nnamdi Kanu, till tomorrow, even in his predicament, people are still giving their legitimacy to him. Some people, the likes of Emeka, will say, oh, those people who are giving support to him are illiterate, and give all manners of derogatory descriptions on their persons. That is his own personal view. The truth remains, IPOB did not just have this popularity she has today because she started that day and got it. No. IPOB is a child of as far back as 2012, and every single process, every single stage she finds herself, people criticize, people also accept. And for him to come and say, because maybe the politicians have not endorsed what Nnamdi Kanu is saying, is not legitimate. I have a very strong issue with that. And that is the problem we have in this part of the world. What makes your theory popular is the level of acceptability from the people, not the few individuals you select within yourself, or your mental fused fellows you think, oh, they are the people who decide what happens. And It is a wrong mindset. That is what really I want to clear on his own side. So you can ask me the question you raised.
All right, the question I raised.
On that issue of legitimacy, please, gentlemen, on that issue of legitimacy, point of clarification. We operate in an established state. We are not operating in a vacuum. So even democratic processes are governed by rules. That is where elections are fixed at a particular time in accordance with a particular rule. We never had a system where we just start something and hope people will emerge and support it. Before they even support it, do you know the cost of experimentation? That was exactly what Simon Ekpa did. What was Leakey did that. And by the way, the so-called acceptance of IPOB is not consistent with the facts on the ground. Do you know, sit at home was enforced with the threat of death, and people were killed for not sitting at home. Is that what we call acceptance? People sit at home out of fear, and sitting at home out of fear and getting killed, that's not acceptance.
Let me respond. Let me respond.
All right.
Let me respond on the issue of sit at home. He just mentioned.
Mr. Chika, I'll bring you back definitely,
okay,
because you talk about safety and security. You said people endorse the movement of the IPOB. Let me say the majority endorse that. But if there is an element of coercion, is it fair for him to say that people are being coerced rather than agreeing to do it willingly, as you mentioned it?
Good.
How can you reconcile them? Yeah.
Thank you so much for this question you raised. And that is why I said, when people are researching or talking about IPOB, don't talk about IPOB from peripheral level, because you end up satisfying your urge for falsehood. You see, if you can vividly remember the issue of sit at home, when IPOB leadership, in fact, as a matter of fact, it's important, let me break down some composition of IPOB that most people do not know, including the media houses. And I wonder why people cannot take a down investigation. You want to talk about a group, try to know what is the structure of this group, what is their modus operandi. You don't just sit idly and assume. When IPOB called for sit at home sometime in 2021, and that decision was communicated to Nnamdi Kanu. Nnamdi Kanu suspended it. I'm on record. I'm on record saying this. Nnamdi Kanu suspended it and transmitted a signal to the leadership, and the leadership followed suit. So, but we have a case. What is happening in Southeast? And I believe some of you will take your time to go and pick primary sources of information, not just the secondary sources that flows everywhere. People come and give, dishonest narrative. What happened in Southeast as regards to sit at home was this. At a time, the politicians, in their effort to blackmail IPOB, in their failed effort to blackmail Nnamdi Kanu, in their effort to criminalize the struggle, because the struggle that threatens the existence. They feel that the popularity of this young man, Nnamdi Kanu, and the movement is, overshadowing everything. So let us even do false flag. The politicians used the opportunity, even when IPOB have cancelled the sit at home, to start sponsoring various criminal elements. And I can give you a record, even at a particular time, the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, is on record, admitted that the insecurities in Imo specifically were propelled by his political opponent. He's on public, he was on Arise, I think, Channels TV. I have a clip of it. Dave Umahi, who was former governor of Ebonyi State, in one of his boasts on national television, he said, and I quote, that if IPOB does not stop the agitation, that a group will emerge that will oppose them. So he is calling Simon Ekpa. Simon Ekpa has no business with IPOB. And that's why I say people should go down to investigations. You don't just sit idly and postulate. Because we are talking about fact. Simon Ekpa is on record, was expelled. Some people will say, oh, but he granted interview with IPOB. That's somebody sat as a media, maybe you have a platform, and you say, oh, Chika Austine, come and speak on my platform. Does he automatically makes me a member of his ideology? The answer is no. So I want him to tell me where IPOB talked about it at home and how IPOB fellows enforced it. The people he can mention in his autopilots, which are Simon Ekpa Group. IPOB has administrative channels.
All right, Mr.
Very, very important. And most of these guys lack
Mr.
understanding of.
I wish we had time. We have run out of time entirely. Maybe we'll have a
definitely we will have a second segment of this program.
Yes,
because
there is a lot to talk about. But
as we go on, gentlemen, the truth of IPOB lies in the broadcast of
Go and listen to Simon Ekpa. You can a very fantastic job. Very great job that Simon Ekpa is doing. Very, very, absolutely fantastic job that he's doing. You must listen to him and share his videos accordingly. Very, very important. He is bringing a new dimension to this very awareness that we are making, and you must listen to him.
So you cannot you cannot deny Simon Ekpa now. If you want to know the truth of what IPOB meant for, you understand it is we have abundant evidence of what IPOB, and interestingly, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu provided us that information. He provided the government, he provided the court evidence about what they are for. And by the way, anyway, you loaded a gun, and you are complaining that somebody else is using it. I warned them. I said to them, you are about to load a gun and you will not control this gun. And that is what happened. Of course, I'm aware that several criminal elements in the Southeast are now claiming to be IPOB. Armed robbers are now claiming to be ESL. I understood these things, but I still hold them responsible because they loaded that gun. It was bound to happen.
Okay. We don't have much time. I believe and I hope we will have a second episode of this program. I assure you of that. Maybe we talk about Nnamdi Kanu's trial, and then we talk more about the means used by Biafra agitators, because it is very important, not just, since we have all agreed, or supposing we agree that self-determination is genuine and sanctified by both national and international laws, what are the best ways to go about it? It's very important. So we will talk about it in our next episode. You have made a very good point, Mr. Chika Austine, as well as Mr. Emeka Ugwuonye. Thank you for your contribution.
Good.
And also, the audience, we are glad to have you on this program. Would you like to say something, Mr. Chika? Just
yes, Tochukwu,
maybe in a second, please.
Yes, Tochukwu, a quick one. I'm sorry for coming in. I wish if we can come back and talk extensively on the state effort to import the atrocities of Simon Ekpa on Nnamdi Kanu. It's very, very important we talk about it, because most people do not even understand that Simon Ekpa was not a member of IPOB. And it's important we talk about it. Simon Ekpa was more of a state contractor, contracted to undermine the peaceful process of IPOB. Very, very important.
All right.
So I will...
All right, Mr. Chika. I think because of time, the next episode, we should prepare for all of that in the next episode. Mr. Chukwu, continue.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Say this, that if you want to watch this program uploaded on our YouTube channel, Diaspora Digital Media, DDM TV, do ensure you hit the like button, make your comments, subscribe to the DDM TV, and whatever comments you have, just go there and make the comments. We are going to take your questions and your suggestions and then incorporate it in our next episode. I am Tochi Raphael. Let me say once again thank you to our special guest, Mr. Emeka Ugwuonye, Esquire, and Mr. Chika Austine. It is nice to have you. The essence of this program is to not to fight or not to engage in a warfare, but to establish an understanding to push the Igbo land or the Southeast forward. Because we believe in justice, we believe in fairness, we believe in the same goal, which is self-determination. As some people would say, self-determination is all about good governance and provision of basic amenities. But then some will say, no, it is about political independence. That is what IPOB is agitating for. But it is through conversations like this that we establish a common ground for us to transform our generation to the next level. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, we are going to alert you once we have a date for our next episode. Mr. Ibrahim Umawase, it's good to have you again as my co-host. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tochukwu Raphael. It's an honor hosting these two brains with different ideas, and that's a purest personification of representing democracy, because democracy is about competition of ideas. And the point of conversation, as you rightly mentioned, is to avoid the war. The point of conversation is to be able to sit down and come to a logical conclusion without the need for a violence. So thank you very much for coming, Diaspora Digital Media, and I can't wait to meet you in the next episodes.
Exactly. I have seen so many hands up from the audience. Just note your questions and suggestions down. Go to visit our YouTube channel, DDM TV, subscribe, then wait for us because we're coming with questions, we're coming with a lot of things for our guests. Okay, we draw the curtain here. Thank you very much, our beautiful, intellectual, and ever energetic guests. See you next time.